Finally made it to Vilnius. Okay, I finally arrived after a long walk from the bus station. And this hotel, the Congress Hotel in Vilnius, is by far the nicest hotel I've stayed in during this trip. So I can use a nice hotel with what I've gone through today. My first morning in Vilnius, and I'm standing at the cathedral. There is a bell tower behind me, so let's go into the cathedral. The Vilnius Cathedral is the most important Catholic shrine in the country. It was first built in 1251 on the site of a pagan temple, but has been rebuilt many, many times. The current neoclassical design dates back to the late 18th century. Though the nave is somewhat plain, there are 11 chapels surrounding it, such as this one, which I believe is the Saint Stanislas chapel. This chapel, along with two other ones, were recently unveiled after being sealed off for 70 years.
No superpowers, of course, and I'm gonna be your guide today. So this tour, we are going to the old city. We want to see the most important, the most beautiful sites in Vilnius Old Town, and we have about 2 hours to do that. It's a big anniversary this year, and 700 years ago the city got established by that guy in the metal monument that looks a bit like Darth Vader. I'm gonna face my back towards it, okay? Let me just look around a bit. And we've got two more flags. We've got one in the facade of that building. So there's a red background and there's a warrior knight riding a horse in it. That's a very old flag. That is not of Republic of Lithuania, but of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania that existed way back in Middle Ages. Because most people were still worshipping their old pagan gods. Like we had a fire goddess, we had a beer god, and religion was not such a big focus. So that meant the atmosphere was much more tolerant, and that attracted different religious groups. One of the biggest communities in the Middle Ages that we had were Jews. Around the 16th century, Vilnius even started to be called the Northern Jerusalem. It was a very important cultural center. A lot of the fame also came from one guy who lived in this bluish house. You'll notice there's also a memorial plaque. It mentions that Vilnius Gaon lived in that building back in the 18th century. Now, if we translate Gaon, it means genius. Imagine that guy was 6 years old when he was giving speeches to his community. 6. And when he grew up, he wrote a lot of scientific works, the Bible commentaries, Hebrew grammar, astronomy, geography, mathematics, physics, and the list goes on.
The Vilna Gaon wrote over 70 works, including secular works such as books on mathematics, but he did warn against assimilation of the Jews to the Lithuanian culture because he felt that that would estrange the Jews from their values and traditions. In any case, he had a great influence on the intellectual and cultural life of Lithuanian Jewry, and that rich cultural life continued right up until the community was annihilated in the Holocaust.
Of the great synagogue, and that synagogue was damaged during the Second World War. It was not completely demolished, and after the war, the community that remained in Vilnius wanted to rebuild it. However, when you look around, there's no synagogue, but there is this Soviet building that looks rather misplaced in the old city. So what happened is that we got incorporated into Soviet Union after the Second World War, and they said that religion does not exist, and that's why regime demolished everything that was left of the synagogue, and they built that kindergarten right on top of the place.
During a question and answer session, I asked the guide what role, aside from the Nazis, did the Lithuanians themselves have in the extermination of the Jewish population. Her answer was that they used degenerates, such as prisoners and whatnot, to shoot the Jews in the forests. Of course, this was a nonsense answer, and she was clearly mandated by the authorities to give such an answer. Just think, there were over 200 killing fields throughout the country, and every one of these used prisoners? Okay.
It's not Catholicism. We said at the beginning of the tour that Vilnius got established 700 years ago, but archaeologists found that people were already living in this territory 10,000 years before Christ. Trade was a very important function of the square. Another very important function was entertainment. It still is actually. People still come here to have fun, but the question is, how could people do that back in the day, back in Middle Ages? How did people enjoy themselves here? Saint Casimir is probably the most well-known person that has ever lived in Lithuania. And I don't know if you know about him, but in Poland everybody does. In South America, Venezuela, there's a whole city, Saint Casimir. And people from South of America and South of Europe, Catholic countries, sometimes still have a name Casimiro behind the river. So the moment you walk over the bridge, then you are not in Lithuania any longer. This republic, I think the seed was planted back in Soviet times when they built an art academy in the area, and
Uzupis is the smallest district in Vilnius, and today is a vibrant community of artists, intellectuals, and entrepreneurs. In 1997, the residents declared it an independent republic, and in fact, it does have its own currency, a constitution, and even a national anthem. Its narrow lanes are lined with artist studios, boutiques, eateries, and cafes, and also with sculptures that are constantly changing.
Und volles Wasser. Worm's armpit. Scratchy worm's armpit. One that every Lithuanian knows is 100 pipes. 100 pipes.
Like just like a fly.
And if you're a business-minded person wondering how you might make some money from this funky, artsy neighborhood, this property in Uzupis is currently for sale and ready to be turned into luxury residential apartments.
Saint Anne's Church is what many people say the most beautiful building in the country. Now, that is subjective, of course, but it's a very complicated structure, built out of 33 different size and color bricks in the year 1500. So for a pretty long time, it has almost not changed on its outside. It's very authentic, and it's regarded as a masterpiece of Gothic architecture.
Behind me is Gediminas Tower, and that looks like a pretty high hill. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the top. Let's see. Legend has it that the Grand Duke Gediminas had a dream in which an iron wolf was howling at the top of this hill. He considered it prophetic, and he built a wooden castle there. That was in the 13th century. Then in the early 15th century, a brick castle was built there in Gothic style, and this is the remaining fortification of the upper castle. It was renovated in 1933. I'm not going to try this. It's, I'm going to pass on this. Okay, I'm standing in front of the Opera House here in Vilnius, and let's see if I can get inside. Apparently there's a lot of renovation and construction going on inside that Opera House, and it is not open to the public, and it won't be reopening for performances until about November, they tell me. All right. Well, that was easy. Got a nice dinner at the Lidl supermarket here, and it's in a shopping mall, and I can sit here and eat it. My walk back to the hotel was greatly enhanced by feeling the collective municipal spirit of these young people enjoying themselves in the twilight. Yes, I am always impressed by the sense of community that one gets in European urban life and that one cannot get in a gated community in an American suburb. The average height in Lithuania is just under 6 feet, and so it's not uncommon to see tall people, and that is also a good thing for their national sport, basketball. So on this last evening of my brief visit to Vilnius, I wandered from the hotel to this nearby plaza, which honors the composer of the Lithuanian national anthem. So I'm on the train from Vilnius to Kaunas, and with a little family here, Ella and a young man who actually lives in Fort Myers Beach in Florida.
Hello.
And
Ella, you want to say hello?
and that's the grandmother.
I don't like picture.
And he's from Kaunas, but he's going back to Fort Myers in a while.
Hello.
Well, I've just arrived at the Ibis Hotel in Kaunas, and checking out the room now. And it's on a busy street, but I don't think it will bother me. Yeah, everything looks spick and span. All right, let's get on with the afternoon. I've arrived in the old town of Kaunas, and I'm on my way in a few minutes to meet Richard Schoenfeld, who I contacted and who is going to hopefully tell me about Jewish history here. Well, I think the place is right around here. There it is, Vero Cafe. Okay, maybe I'm a few minutes early. Let's see if I can meet him, Richard Schoenfeld. Well, I had a long and leisurely meeting with Richard Schoenfeld at this cafe, and he explained to me his projects in locating and preserving Litvak photographs from before World War II. Unfortunately, he did not want any video taken of him. The word Litvak, by the way, refers to a Jew of Lithuanian origin. In fact, my paternal grandparents were Litvaks. It's Thursday morning, and I'm on my way to see the other expert on Jewish genealogy here that was recommended to me by Tomek in Białystok. And behind me, I stumbled on this mosque, which was built in 1930, and is a very interesting architecturally. Okay, it must be in this building here. Nice building.
My name is Julius. I am born and raised and live in this area. You know, we have 4 generations living there. So, Harvey put a question: how many Jews are now in Lithuania, and where do they live now? So, we could assume that nowadays in Lithuania are 2,500 Jews. No, of course, it's only God knows the exact number of Jews, and beside that, of course, you know that there are thousands of ways to be a Jew. So that most of them, let's say 90% of Jews of Lithuania today live in Vilnius city. And the story behind it is that right after World War II, when surviving Jews came back to Lithuania, apart from Russia, Soviet Union, or from concentration camps in Germany, or from somewhere they were hiding themselves during the war. So they didn't came back to live in their ancestral townships because everything was destroyed and the family was killed, and the people, the families have been killed by local people. And how you are supposed to live among murders, and you are not even allowed to voice your feelings about it.
Yeah.
So they moved to Vilnius, and as a, we could say, regional capital city, and the people, they are not, how to say, it's not pure ethnic Lithuanian city. It's a Polish city, and Lithuanians have been only few percentage in that time. You know, I speak about 1945, 1946, and later. So for them, Vilnius was a place where to start, to organize their lives anew. So of course, you have Jewish people coming to Vilnius from, from other parts of Soviet Union. The history is a bit more complicated, to explain briefly, but I will try in a few sentences.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can talk in a second, but could you also say that you are an expert in Yiddish, but you did not grow up as a Jewish person. You somehow got very interested in Jewish culture.
Okay. So I learned Yiddish language and became even a teacher of Yiddish, and I do lead a Yiddish class, and my class are Jews of Vilnius. So that's And I regard it as a part of my heritage, and what is important to know, to be able to read and to have trust of Jewish people. What do they think about themselves? And they never ever would tell to Lithuanians what they think about it. How to describe? These are stereotypes and,
Stereotypes of the
general
Litvak.
things, but you have Litvaks, so, and then you have Ukrainian Jews, you have Hungarian Jews, you have Jews from Bessarabia, so Galicians Jews. So you can consider yourself to be a Litvak.
Half Litvak.
So,
Half Litvak.
so what I can tell you on this time, usually in the language, in Yiddish, when you have an ending ak, so that means something bad, very negative, like durak is a crazy person, a stupid person, or paskudnak is a mischievous person. So Litvak, it's a characteristic of someone who is very straightforward, has no sense of humor, and very dry.
It's a derogatory term. Derogatory.
But Litvaks, they of course they don't think in this way of themselves. So they made very interesting invention. They changed accent. Instead of putting accent on the last syllable, they moved it on the first syllable. Litvak, Litvak. You see the difference. Litvak. So Litvak is something to be proud of. Starting with the most charismatic names like Vilnius and all sages of Vilna. So these Litvaks. So if you talk to someone from Lithuanian Jews and you want to be in a good terms with him and you are afraid to offend him, never ever say Litvak, but say Litvak.
Huh.
So they would appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Litvak. When in real life, the situation was way round. The most, politically minded intellectuals and intellectuals, they have been very anti-Semitic. And there is a number of witnesses, saying that even, let's take the local township. Who would organize local men, mobilize them as a killers group? Of course, you need some authority, and you should be in connection with other people on a higher level to have clear instructions, and you have resources to do that. And you should be already taught the Jews is something wrong and we should annihilate them completely. It didn't came at once, but you should be trained as entire generation.
Indoctrinated by the authorities above.
Yes,
That-
leading intellectuals and other public figures, including Roman Catholic Church, they would incite this animosity towards Jews. And
so when the Germans came, it was almost like gave them permission
Yeah, yeah, exactly. To do what they wanted to do.
Okay, but I would assume that these people who were doing what the Germans wanted them to do were not representative of the entire Lithuanian society. They were not, do you think?
No, no. I think in general, society was and is very anti-Jewish.
Really?
Really.
In the old days or today too?
Today too. Even the Jews are absent, but starting with all kinds of stereotypes and stupid jokes and anecdotes and whatever stories. And now let me give you one example. To make it short. We have one guy in politics. His name is Žemaitaitis. He's MP, member of parliament. The guy who is very well educated, very brave, and he is not afraid to speak publicly and of course in a crooked way offend Jews. And then you have, I don't want to go too much into details, but you can find on the internet. And then you have internet, and then you have texts about him, and then you can read comments. What people are writing in comments.
Yeah.
Actually, you see that majority would elect him president of the state next day, without second thought. So that means that this anti-Jewishness, anti-Semitism is unreflected, latent, but it is present.
All right, I'm going to come down on this street here, the longest pedestrian street in Europe, they say. And starting here. Boy, it does look pretty long. The city of Kaunas has a population of about 300,000, making it the second largest city in Lithuania after Vilnius, which has about double that population. Whereas Vilnius is relatively cosmopolitan, Kaunas exhibits more typical traditional Lithuanian culture. Okay, to return to the theme of Lithuanian Jewish history, before World War II, Kaunas, or Kovna as it was called in Yiddish or Russian, had about 38,000 Jews, or about 30% of the population. The great majority of these were massacred during the Holocaust. After the war, the survivors mostly emigrated to Israel. In the 1990s, after Lithuania became independent, there were about 500 Jews in Kaunas. This church is the largest Gothic cathedral with a basilica floor plan in the country. It is rather austere looking from the outside, but on the inside it's magnificently decorated. The high altar with its sculptures of apostles is especially striking. And we're coming to the old town hall building here. There's another church. The Kaunas Castle was built in the 14th century. Today, only partial heights of the bastion and the tower remain. It was once the center of trading in the region. This mural facing the castle is referred to as the Wise Old Man. It pays tribute to an influential Kaunas-born artist named Jorgis Masiunas, and it is painted on the side of an old former shoe factory. This bronze statue of a freedom fighter was actually sculpted in 1928, but it was subsequently demolished by the Soviet government. It was eventually repaired and placed here in 2018. The statue models Lithuania's coat of arms, one of the oldest coat of arms in Europe. At the top of the stairs, one can enter the little museum that is housed in the tower. Unfortunately, the 2 days that I spent in Kaunas were simply not enough to see what I would have liked to have seen, especially the sad Jewish history of the place. And so, the next morning, I embarked for the village of my paternal grandparents. It's Friday morning, about 5 after 9, and in 10 minutes the bus to Lithuania should be arriving at the platform.